Hi everyone, in today's video I'll be covering folded hems, which provide a nice edge for your finished project. I love to use them on summer projects where I don't want the ribbed look of a sweater. I'll show you two techniques for a folded hem, so adding a hem at the start of your project, done entirely on the machine, perfect for bottom-up tops or hat brims. And then also how to add a folded hem at the end of your project, which requires some hand sewing, great for top-down projects or projects where you want a folded edge on both sides. And we'll finish off with some more time-consuming but decorative options, a purl ridge edge, which gives a nice crisp fold, and a decorative picot edge. For all the folded options, you will need fabric to be twice the length as it will be folded. So we want the part that we're folding inside to be slightly smaller gauge and to avoid any puckering. For my swatches today, I'm going to be doing a 10 row hem, so I'll be knitting 20 rows in total. Chapters are available if you're only interested in a specific technique. Let's get started. This technique is for the starting edge of your project. Start by casting on with a standard cast on. We want this edge to be live stitches. Knit the first row as normal. We don't want this row to be too tight or it will make lifting the stitches difficult later on. Knit the next 9 rows at a tighter gauge, so to do this just pull the yarn a little tighter than normal, just enough to create a 1 or 2 millimeter difference in the length without making your machine produce any odd noises. After that, knit the next 10 rows with normal tension. Now take the live edge stitches and attach them back onto the machine, folding the fabric in half. I have to admit this technique isn't my favourite. I find this part quite difficult and it can make my fingers cramp, especially if I'm doing the full circumference of the machine. So if you have dexterity issues, you may want to skip to the next technique instead. But if you really hate seaming, this is a good alternative. Once all the stitches are attached, continue with your project from here. I'll knit a few rows and cast off so you can see what this looks like. So this is the result, and I admit it does look good. Doing the tight rows is really worth it. This is a project where I forgot to do the tight rows, and as you can see, there is a little puckering. On this sample, there is no puckering. However, it's not perfect. You can see a few stitches are elongated, where I had to either tug extra hard to get them to reach, and also could just be because I was concentrating on getting the stitches attached and wasn't monitoring my tension on the row we were knitting as well. But that's user error, and with practice this could look perfect. But as I said, it's not my favourite to actually do, so I don't do it very often. The technique for your end of your project is pretty similar. I want 20 rows in total, so 20 rows before the end of my project, I will add a marker yarn just to my first row. This will make sewing in easier. So you just lay it over the top and knit both yarns. I knit 10 rows of normal tension, then another 10 rows of tighter tension, and then cast off the machine. Now it's time to sew this down. You can do this 2 ways. You can do Kitchener stitch, just here, which looks prettier, but it does take a little longer. But for a scarf or project where the edge is visible, this is a good option. The easier and quicker way is just to whip stitch. It doesn't look as pretty as Kitchener, but the edge is secure and it still retains its stretch. And it's much quicker. I am right-handed, so I do usually stitch that way, so just bear with me as this is the wrong way. So for Kitchener stitch, what we want to do is we are basically going to create a knitted row. So from the first stitch, we can see it's lying flat here. You can see that. We're going to go from back to front, just with your yarn tail. And then we're just going to match it up with the first stitch here, so you can see that's one there, and that's actually the first stitch there, so I've just had to unroll it a little bit. Okay, and what we actually want to do is we want to follow the curve. Okay, So I'm going to go here. It will be a little bit more clear once I'm not on the edge, so just bear with me. Okay, so I'm just going to go up there, follow that stitch down, and then we're going to go back into the stitch, but we're going to go front to back this time. There we go. As you can see, we've created a sort of N shape. Okay. So next stitch, hopefully this will get a bit clearer now. So I'm going to pull my stitch up just so I know that it's laying nice and flat. You can see you don't want it twisted. You can see how that's twisted. Nice and flat. Back to front. Then find your row. So this is the one I've just done. So see, got my pink yarn here. So I want to go into this stitch above. Follow that around. Down into there. Okay. And then back into the stitch where we came from. Okay. From front to back. Show that one more time. Back to front. You want to, so we've got the U shaped here, and we just want to follow the stitch up above. So up. Follow the path of the stitch. Down. And then back in from front to back. So sorry if that was unclear. I'm doing it in the wrong direction. So there we're creating a nice little row there. Much, much easier and quicker technique is to just whip stitch. So let's pull up the stitch again. You want to make sure that it's flat. So lying nice and flat. And then we're just going to go into stitch here. So you can go under the pink yarn because we're going to pull it out anyway. So and lay the stitch nice and flat. And whip it into place. Nice and flat. Under the pink yarn and under the stitch. So there you have the two techniques. I'll finish the row and then I'll pull out the pink yarn so you can have a good look. So this is the second technique. I think it all comes down to personal preference as to what fits into your project. The end result will be very similar, and with practice, your machine tension will improve or your seaming will improve. So now you know how to do a folded hem. They are beautiful just as they are, but if you wanted to try something a little different, then you can try the purl edge or the pico edge. Both are actually very easy to do, they just require a little patience. So starting with the purl edge, in this example I'm doing it at the end of my project. So I've added my marker yarn and I've knit my 10 normal rows. Now I want to remove the project from the machine. Usually I would just nuke this one row by hand, so I only need to remove and reattach the project once. However, for this video I want to show how to do it entirely on the machine for those who can't knit by hand. So give the project a flip and put it back on the machine. Have the knit side or right side facing inwards. knit one row, then we're going to remove it from the machine again, flip and put it back on, with the purl side or wrong side facing inwards. Then the process is the same as before. Knit 10 rows of tight tension, remove from the machine and seam it up. As you can see, this technique creates a natural fold in the fabric, so it does give it a little bit more of a flatter edge compared to the regular folded hem. I think this is why it's often used in hand knitting patterns for a folded edge. While I like this method, my favourite folded edge is the pico edge. Just like before, I'm starting at the end of my project and I have my guide yarn and my 10 normal rows complete. If you've seen my lace video, then you know how to make eyelets. If you haven't, it's quite simple. We just pick up a stitch and move it to the next needle over. In this example, I have one needle between each eyelet. So I knit the stitch, lift and move a stitch over, knit it, move a stitch, and repeat this all the way along the project. Then, as before, knit 10 rows of tight tension, cast off and seam. The eyelets create a lovely little curve along the fold. So the spacing between the eyelets changes the look. Here's the one that we've just made. And this one has 3 stitches between, creating a bit more of a scalloped edge. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please do all the YouTube things like comment, share it in your socials, etc. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!